Hey, what's up bros? Welcome back to another Pokemon Sleep video. It's Bro Vinny here. Today we are talking about how many hours you can sleep with your Pokemon per day. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, for example, Sylveon here, who needs 150 hours of sleep. And so this Eevee has to be in your team in order for it to register those hours, in order for it to evolve into Sylveon and a few other evolutions as well. And the question is, what's the quickest way to evolve this Pokemon? How many hours can a person actually register with each Pokemon per day at maximum? Is it 8.5 hours? Is it 24 hours? So I set out to prove the absolute maximum is 13 hours. I'm going to show you proof in a moment, but I'll tell you what that means first. If you're a player like me who sleeps once a day, who tries to get 8.5 hours of sleep, just to achieve that perfect 100 out of 100 score in order to get maximum rewards according to the game, you would just do your 8.5 hours every day so that you can wake up earlier or wake up at about that amount of time, not sleep longer because you want to collect your berries and your ingredients earlier. But because sleep hours registered on a Pokemon can go beyond that, what that might mean for you is during a week where you might be evolving an Eevee or an Igglybuff and you need those sleep hours, or if you're just a few hours short, why not just sleep the extra few hours in order to evolve those Pokemon? So, the game does tell you that you can track a maximum of 13 hours in one session, but it doesn't say if all 13 can be logged into the Pokemon. It also doesn't mention what happens if you do a second session. If you did, say, 12 hours on the first session and hypothetically you did another 8, 10, or 12 hours for a second session, is that 24 hours added to the Pokemon? I'm not saying you should do this, but I wanted to prove to you that it still remains at 13 hours. Now, just before I go to prove to you how you can get the maximum amount of sleep with a Pokemon, let's get some basic knowledge out of the way first, just so we're all on the same page. Now, when we're talking about the sleep hours required to evolve a Pokemon, the way you check it is to click Evolve and then choose the right Pokemon if it's an Eevee, and you look at this number here. Now, the reason you don't use this number here, it's not because this number is bugged, and to this day, I still don't know why they do it this way, but there's actually a specific way to calculate sleep time shared. And I explained it in another video, so I'm not going to explain it in this video. It's a very useless statistic, but you might be interested to find out how they actually calculate this number. So this number here, it's not exactly the same as the sleep hours for evolution. So if you're curious, go back to my other video to find out. Just Google sleep time shared, Pokemon sleep. You'll see it's one of the top recommended videos. And the other basic knowledge we'll want to find out is whether add sleep data can be used to add logged hours to a Pokemon. So what I've done here is on my alt account, I've pre-recorded these videos just as proof. So this Pichu can evolve in 50 hours to Pikachu, but it's currently at 20 sleep hours only. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to manually add 12 hours of sleep data. So on October 3rd, I added from 9 AM to 9 PM as the first sleep session. And we're going to see if Pichu gets 12 hours from this. By the way, if you try to make 13 hours, it won't let you. It won't even let you go over 1 minute from 12 hours. So in 12 hours is the absolute maximum for add sleep data. Even though the game says each session, in the help articles it says each session is 13 hours. So here I am proceeding to press save for the manual data for October 3rd. There we go. So the data has been added. And I go back to my Pokemon box and check on Pichu. And as it turns out, Pichu has gained 12 hours of sleep. It started from 20 hours and it gained 12 hours from manual data. So yes, adding manual data does work, but of course it comes with a problem. I'm not saying use manual data to make your Pokemon evolve because you won't be able to do your sleep research for the day. Since you're capped at 8.5 hours for the 100 sleep score, your second session, even if you sleep at nighttime on the same day, you're not going to wake up to a sleep session. You're just going to be on 0% sleep score. But just as a proof of concept, it is possible to add 12 hours to your Pokemon. But will it work a second time in the same day? And you can see here that on the same day, 1 minute after my last session, I added another 12 hours into the next day. Now, because I started the session at October 3rd, the session will count as the second session of October 3rd, not the first session of October 4th. Now, some of you will tell me the game tells you there's not going to be any rewards. So you should know this. It says you'll not receive any rewards. In my defense, without testing, we never really know. It said rewards capped at 8.5 hours, yet you can sleep more than 8.5 hours to get rewarded in terms of sleep hours for your Pokemon. And after seeing the numerous bugs in this game, it's best to confirm for yourself whether something is true. So that's what I set out to do, and I'm going to check my Pichu again and see if the hours have gone up. And you'll see that Pichu did not log an extra hour or any extra time at all. It got stuck at 32 hours. So in other words, a second manual data session does nothing, so don't do that. In fact, it's my belief that if you did a regular tracked sleep for your first session, your second session also can't add any sleep hours. I didn't actually test that, so if I'm wrong about that, let me know in the comments section below. So at this point, I decided to test a second method. What if I added manual sleep data for the first session, but for the second session, I didn't use manual data. I did a regular tracked sleep. So that's what I did. So first, I added on the first session of October 4th, 10 hours. I just wanted to add a little bit more of a variety in this video, just to show you that different numbers. But usually, to get max sleep hours, you would do 12 hours, but I did 10 in this case. But you'll see in a moment that it doesn't really matter as long as the second session is long enough. So I went ahead and added 10 hours of sleep manually. Now, this video had to be made over several days because obviously the game doesn't let you add manual data many days before. In fact, the limit is 30 hours, so and in order to track sleep on the right day, I had to make this video over several days. And the game says, yep, you've been rewarded, as it normally does for manual data. What it doesn't say on this screen is that your Pokemon do get their sleep hours added. So we went over to check on our Pichu, and you can now see that 10 hours of manual data were logged into the sleep hours of this Pichu. So what happened next was I immediately on the same day put the phone to tracking sleep and did a real track session. In fact, I tracked more than 13 hours. I did like 24 hours of tracking, and the game told me it would only accept a certain number of hours because I exceeded the maximum sleep time. And these were the results of my 2 sessions added together. You get 100 sleep score. If we combine both the manual session and the track session. Then the game told me there were some hours that it didn't log because I actually just left the phone on my desk. I probably should have kept it next to my bed. At least it would have counted these blank hours as well. But it doesn't really matter in this situation because you're going to see why. When I went over to check on my Pichu, the sleep hours logged were 45. So despite having slept supposedly 11 hours, which was closer to 24 hours that I left the phone alone, plus a 10-hour manual session in the same day, the maximum sleep hours I logged with Pichu was 13. Because if you remember from an earlier part of the video, 32 was where we ended. So 45 minus 32 is 13 hours. So that's how I came to the conclusion that the maximum number of hours you can sleep with a Pokemon in one day, if you really wanted to, is 13. And my hypothesis extends to people who sleep 2 sessions. So while previously we talked about how to split 2 sessions, should it be 6 hours and 2 hours, or is it 2 hours and 6 hours, or is it 4 and 4 split? If we now put evolving Pokemon with sleep hours into the equation, maybe we should be thinking more like 8 hours and 4 hours over the 2 session, or is it 4 hours and 8 hours over the 2 sessions? And just so you guys know, I put up a poll on my Discord to see what people thought the maximum hour of sleep you can get was. This was before I released this video, and most people got it right. It's not 12 hours exactly. I just wanted to put 12 there as a close approximation. But for anybody who voted 12 hours, you are absolutely right. That is the maximum number of hours. So 13 is the maximum number of hours you can get in a day. And for those of you who are curious, here is the actual sleep data from my alt account that did all this testing. So initially I did the 12 hours and 12 hours 2 manual sessions. Only 12 hours got added, and that was from the first session. Then I did 10 hours plus 11 something hours, but this one I slept extra, so I slept like 24 hours. In this situation, 10 hours got added from the first manual data, then 3 hours got added from the 11 hours that I slept as a tracked sleep. And you can always tell which ones are tracked sleep and which ones are manual data by looking at whether there is an image on the side. So the next time you go ahead and evolve one of these Pokemon, if you are only 12 or 13 hours away from evolution, why split it over 2 days? You could get it a day earlier. It might benefit you, it might not. For absolute whales out there, you can just make up for that loss with a helper whistle, so that doesn't matter. Then you can evolve your Pokemon much earlier. The other downsides though is that if you sleep extra hours on certain days, it can affect your end of week midpoint, your consistency. So I'm talking about these things here, the S score, the A rank, and so on. And of course, with a poorer midpoint, you're going to get less candy as a reward. By the way, this will be the topic of another video. So, in knowing this, let's do some maths. What is the absolute quickest we can evolve a Pichu to a Pikachu? So Pokemon that require 50 hours of sleep, or Igglybuff, for example. And what's the shortest amount of time to evolve an Eevee to a Sylveon? The Pokemon that require 150 hours of sleep. So let's head on over to our calculator. 50 hours divided by what I normally sleep is 8.5 hours. It would take me 6 days to get a Pikachu from a Pichu. If I was pushing for the absolute limit and I did 13 hours every day, it could be done in 4 days. And for Pokemon that require 150 hours, normally, if I was to sleep regularly for the 100 sleep score, it would take me 18 days to evolve an Eevee to a Sylveon, or an Umbreon, or an Espeon, or a Riolu to Lucario. Whereas, if I were to do it for 13 hours per day, it would save me 6 days. I could get it done in 12 days to evolve the Pokemon. Or maybe there's just a week where you don't feel like you need too much strength, Snorlax strength, or maybe you're almost done with an area, you're just missing a few sleep styles, you don't really care too much about Snorlax strength, and you want to spend that week, we'll call it the throwaway week, where you use it to evolve your Pokemon that require sleep hours. You put them all together in the same team and do 13 hours a day just to get it over and done with. Well, that's another method. In fact, if you do it 13 hours every day consistently, your sleep midpoint could be correct. Could be an S rank, so you don't lose out on the end of week reward as well. So how you use this knowledge is up to you. Just remember the drawbacks, and that is affecting your end of week results. And of course, more hours spent tracking sleep means less ingredients, because while berries can overflow into sneaky snacking, ingredients cannot. So if you were to do something like this, let's say you've got 3 or 4 Pokemon you're trying to evolve at the same time by registering 13 hours a day, maybe that last slot of a Pokemon, if you still want to get some Snorlax strength, you put on a berry specialist with berry finding S, that is favorite berry. So in my case, it would be on Cyan Beach with this Feraligatr, who has berry finding S, because I know all the berries will overflow as I'm still tracking sleep and still boosting that Snorlax strength. So you can try and game the system in this way to try and get your Pokemon to evolve as soon as possible. So another way you can use this knowledge is actually maybe you want to do this extra sleep on Sunday, because Sunday, the berries that are picked up overnight are not added to the Snorlax strength. They do not count towards the sleep research in the next morning. Neither do they get added to next week's Snorlax, so Sunday berries are kind of useless unless they're in your inventory. So if you are one of those people who sleep with ingredients specialists on Sunday, or any Pokemon that have high inventory, and that is what's recommended for Sunday night, with any remaining slots you could fit an Eevee or something you want to evolve in there for 13 hours of sleep. Of course, you just gotta watch your sleep midpoint not to affect your end of week score too much. And by the way, I've just put in a full list of all Pokemon that require 50 hours of sleep or 150 hours of sleep in my Discord info channel. So as the game progresses and we get new Pokemon, we're going to add to this list. But basically the current ones are Clefairy, Igglybuff, Togepi, and Pichu for 50 hours. And then there's Riolu and the 3 evolutions, which are 150 hours. And that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching, guys. If this video helped you, or it confused you even more, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel.